Welcome back to the Money Script Podcast. I'm your host, Johanse Harrison. So happy to be with you on this beautiful day. It's another beautiful day in paradise. As you're listening to this, I'm not quite sure where the stock market is because it's up, it's down. That's just what it does. But I know on a previous episode we were talking about how it was down like 5% year to date. Yeah, well, 5% year to date said hold my beer. We've got some major names that are just dropping, and the stock market's starting to enter into what we call a bear market. So we're starting to surpass the correction, which is 10% down now for some major positions. They're entering into a bear market. So just know, if you're a long-term investor, this is not a time to freak out. This is a time to say, where could I make some new investments? What are some of those positions that I believe in, that I love, that I think long term can be a great return? Now's a great time to get them on sale. They're on sale. We talked about that last week. But I did want to reinforce this week to all of our listeners out there, and I know there are dozens of you because I get your messages all the time. I want you to know that it is official. I know last year when we talked about it, it wasn't quite official yet, and it seemed like maybe it wouldn't happen, but it's official. If you have peer-to-peer apps, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, what's the other one? PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, in any of those peer-to-peer where you're getting money from a friend, or from one of your vendors, or maybe it's a client, and maybe that's the way you run your business. But if you are receiving more than $600 cumulatively throughout the year, those peer-to-peer financial applications now have to report that to the IRS. Okay, so if you don't report it on your tax return, you're probably going to get an inquiry from the IRS. And it may not be, 10 days after you file your return. Sometimes those things can come months, if not years later. So that's something, if that is a product that you use and millions of Americans use it. And think about it. What if you just, what if you're just sharing an apartment with a friend and the apartment is $1,600 a month? Yeah, I know I'm probably describing an apartment that's in like Ohio or something, but if you're paying $1,600 a month for that apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, now I'm in a very tiny part of Ohio, but 2-bedroom apartment, $1,600 a month, and you give your friend $800 each month, and you don't flag it as, this is rent, or something like that, so that your friend can then report it properly on their taxes, they could end up with a tax problem that kind of you created. So what I'm not saying is don't not pay your friend rent. Give your friend the rent, but make sure that your friend also understands that they're going to have some additional reporting to do. Now, I'm sure all the tax software is going to create questionnaires, and I don't even think the tax form for us to file it has been created yet as it relates to these peer-to-peer payments, because this is the first year that it's being enforced, but it is in force. Now, what is not in force, that we spoke about briefly last season as well, or maybe it was the top of this season, but what is not in force is the IRS's ability to go and get reports from your bank account. Okay, that is something that was part of the Build Back Better bill, which, as of the recording of this podcast, did not pass, along with the Voting Rights Act. But we won't get into that. Our guest today is actually going to talk about how to get away from all this mess. Well, sort of. But anyways, there is there was a provision that was in that would allow the IRS to, quite frankly, just look at your bank account, request your bank records, for anyone that has transactions that were, I can't even remember the number. It was small. I think they used the same $600 number, but it was a small amount of money. So if you had money coming in your account for over that amount for a tiny year, the IRS could look at all of your bank records, which is just seems like a logistical nightmare. So that is not in effect yet. However, if you get more than $600, whether it's because you split rent or split a meal, or that's how you collect revenue from your clients, now's the time to start doing a much better job of tracking that information, so that you know what those payments are, so you can be in compliance with the IRS. Because you don't want those problems. You don't. You just don't. They're not something you want to be a part of. So, enough about taxes. Let's actually just not even talk about being in the United States anymore. Because that's the thing, and you know, we've had guests on the show that lived in the U.S., that had regular jobs in the U.S., and one day woke up and said, "This is not for me. This is not for my family. I'm out." And I found another one of them. I found another, and this is actually someone that my wife and I knew years ago, and I had no idea. She's like, "Oh yeah, she living somewhere on an island with her whole family." I said, "What? How? What are we doing, babe? We need to talk about this." I think we got too many U.S. obligations, but by that, those are the people we love. We love y'all. We just, anyways, we'll figure it out. So today, my guest is Gabriella Lindsay. She is a copywriter. She is a I won't call her a coach. I mean, that's really what she's doing. She's helping other coaches, helping other business owners just really be more in control of what they are putting out to be able to advertise themselves and market themselves to others so they can grow their business. So really she's helping other people grow their business, which I think is amazing. But at the same time, her and her family are now living in Antigua. Is that it? Is that what you said?
Antigua. Yep.
Antigua.
Antigua.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're not supposed to pronounce the U, I guess. Isn't there a U in the end of that word?
There is, and there's Antigua, Guatemala. And so that's pronounced Antigua because it's
Ah,
Spanish. But here it's it was a British Commonwealth. So it's Antigua. It's
Antigua.
spelled exactly the
So
same.
I need to
You're
be.
right.
Oh, I said, this whole time I've been over pronouncing it. I get to be American and be lazy and just say, oh yeah, Antigua. So welcome to the Money Script podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Indeed, indeed. So tell us, because that's what most of my listeners they want to know right now. How is it that you're living in Antigua, and they hear that you do not have an Antiguan accent at all. So you sound very Southern Californian. Um, so tell us a little bit about just your background and how you and your family ended up in Antigua.
Yeah. So we're actually, my husband and I are actually both originally from Chicago, but I did go to school. I went to UCLA in SoCal for, grad school. So that's probably where you're hearing a bit of Chicago over to bit of LA.
I hear the
Um,
Chicago. I hear that now that you say it.
yeah.
But then I also heard,
Chicago, right?
yeah, but I also heard UCLA, and you just laid on that A for a little while. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's I get it.
Always a little bit of a hybrid, right?
Yes.
So my husband and I, like I said, we are originally from Chicago. I was an assistant principal at an elementary school there. And, my husband and I and he was a postdoctoral fellow at a university there as well. And we were both, working long hours, doing the whole, white picket fence, 2.5 kids, dog, homeowner house thing, two cars, all
Yeah,
that.
the American way.
And yeah, the American dream. And we both got really, I want to say burnt out, like tired of, perpetually, having to leave at what felt like the crack of dawn, not getting back home until late in the evening, kind of running through the motions. And we had three small kids at that time, not really getting to spend time with them. I was sending them to daycare, which was a great daycare, but I just wasn't seeing things. They were sending me pictures and I wasn't seeing what was actually happening. And I was racing them through their bedtime routine and feeling frustrated all the time. And I decided to leave my job. It was best for our household, best for my mental health, best for, the sake of our kids. So I did leave my job in 2015. And as you know, started working with Herbalife, trying to create that MLM income. That was interesting and a whole topic for a whole nother day.
Whole nother
But
day.
then but then in 2016, in February of 2016, my mother passed away unexpectedly. And one of the things my husband and I had said that we wanted to do was we wanted to live abroad. We were married in Mexico. We had said to ourselves, oh, we're going to move to Mexico someday. Someday we're going to move abroad. Someday we're going to live in Mexico. And when my mother passed away, we both kind of realized, like, what is the someday that we keep talking about? When is the someday going to happen? Because it really brought that reality of, tomorrow is not promised. Not to sound morbid, but really it was just kind of one of those reality checks. Like, how long are you going to put off that someday? She passed away in February of 2016. And by October of 2016, we had sold our house, our cars, all of our stuff. We pared down. We had a 3,600-ish square foot home down to 10 suitcases and a couple of carry-ons. And we got on a plane and moved to Mexico. And we've been abroad. We spent almost 3 years in Mexico. My husband then got a really great job offer here on the island of Antigua at a medical university as a professor. And who doesn't want to live on an island? So we decided we had 2 weeks, we packed all our stuff back up into our 10 suitcases and moved here to Antigua. And because what I do is very location independent, so long as I have Wi-Fi and a computer, I can work anywhere. It was really easy for us to be able to make that transition when, this really great job opportunity came up for him. So that's kind of how we ended up here. And we've been here in Antigua since July of 2018. So I guess, what would that be? 3.5 years now or so.
Tell us a little bit about the logistical process of living abroad when it comes to citizenship. I mean, what must one do if they want to go live in another country?
So thankfully here, being on Antigua, my husband has what's considered a work permit, which allows him to be here so long as he is employed and is in good behavioral standing, doesn't have any run-ins with the law, so to speak. And as his dependents, myself and my children, we also have what are considered extended stay visas, which are contingent upon his work visa being in good working order. So we have to go to immigration every year to make sure that we renew our paperwork and get a new stamp in our passport. But we are not citizens of Antigua. We are not, I guess we're residents is what we would be considered as residents of Antigua, but we are still full citizens of the United States. So we're still beholden to all the US laws. We have not renounced our citizenship. So yeah, we're citizens of the US and residents of Antigua. And every country has a different process for how long you can stay in the country legally beyond what would be considered the tourist time frame.
Got it. So you're not in the situation where you have to like come back to the US for a certain period of time because you have that work visa status. So that's similar to having if you're from another country and having a work visa in the US. We call it a non-resident alien, I believe.
Yeah, very, very similar. So long as we keep our paperwork in order, we are able to stay, which has been great since, with the pandemic, traveling has been kind of strange. We've just been able to do everything. We haven't been off island since 2019, actually, as a family. So we've been able to renew everything right here.
How did your children react to the news that we're moving to another country? I mean, do your children speak Spanish, or how did they do? I mean, I'm sure they took Spanish if they went to school in Southern California, but taking it and speaking it are two different things. So how did the transition go for them?
So we moved when my children were 5, 4, and 3. And so because of that, none of them had actually started formal school yet. My daughter was set to start kindergarten. So she actually started kindergarten a little bit late when we moved in October. She started November. They became fully fluent in Spanish within just a few months. Like for their age, it was really fascinating to watch because the school we sent them to was a local school where they spent all day, every day learning in Spanish alongside local kids. They took 1 hour a week of English class, which the teacher actually helped them learn more Spanish, some of the rudimentary Spanish that they should have already known if they had been, raised in the culture. Thankfully, there's 3 of them. And so even when we moved here to Antigua, they were a little older. The transitions have always been pretty smooth because they have each other. There's the consistency of having one another. But yeah, they learned Spanish right away. And then when we moved to Antigua, they were really excited about, the idea of living on an island. I think we'd watched Moana quite a few times. Different island, I know, but they were just like, oh, we're going to be like Moana and live on an island.
I am Moana. Yeah, I've seen that a few times. Now all we watch is Encanto. And of course, we don't talk about Bruno.
Exactly.
Every morning, every weekend.
Love it.
Encanto. It's a great movie, though. I got to give them credit, but I'm ready for something new. I know that's a question I get from a lot of clients that have considered the idea of entertaining employment or taking their small business overseas or across border. It doesn't necessarily have to be overseas. And those that have small children, that immediately becomes the reason why they're not going to do it. Because even when I've entertained the subject with Alicia, that's the first thing we think about. Okay, well, what about our kids? We have a kid in college and we have a post-toddler entering into her younger childhood years. And it's like, what does that look like for them? And it's just hard to imagine because we're used to what surrounds us. I want to go back to the decision when it was decision time, because you talked about all of these things that had built up to the decision itself with the passing of your mother, which I can certainly understand. I've been through that twice. Well, not two moms, but mother and father. I understand the 9 to 5 because Alicia and I were stuck in that rat race as well, and became very frustrated. We get pictures from our daughter's nursery right now, but we get to be more present because we work from home, et cetera. But just, I mean, at what point did you and your husband say the answer is leaving the United States? I mean, and how many different countries did you consider? And yeah, can you share a little bit more about that decision making process?
So we had not actually considered any other country. Mexico was where we were going. And that was mostly in part because my father actually still lives in Mexico and we were going to go and be with him. So after my mom passed, we said, time is short. Let's, be with my father. And we'd actually been visiting there frequently and we were very familiar. It felt comfortable. It felt like, we'd been there for months on end on vacation. So we felt like, this is the smoothest transition we could possibly make, even smoother than moving to a different city in the US, right? We knew where to get, to groceries, how to get here, where to live, what area to, look for a home in. So all of that felt comfortable. It felt a little safer for us. But a major draw for Mexico specifically was the cost of living, knowing that we were leaving behind my husband's, full-time employment. We were gonna make it as entrepreneurs. Like we were gonna do it. That was our plan. We weren't doing it yet, but we was gonna do it. And so we needed somewhere that we knew we could make do on the savings that we had plus limited income without feeling like we were still struggling. Like one of the biggest things we wanted to feel was like we were not struggling, like we were not struggling to make ends meet, getting to the end of the 2 weeks or the end of the month or what have you, a spaghetti night, because that's what we have left. Feeling like we were living more fully. And Mexico provided that opportunity for us because the cost of living and the dollar to peso ratio at the time was really good. So we could live on considerably less. So that was kind of where Mexico kind of came into the picture.
So either Gabriella knows that she's on a money script podcast, um, and she really thought through and planned. That's what her answer would be, or they really thought about finances before making that move. And I have to stress to listeners out there, if you were planning to make a move, whether it's to the next town over, the next state over, or the next country over, you need to consider cost of living, especially right now as we emerge out of this pandemic. Hopefully, we're emerging. Please be emerging out of the pandemic. But as we continue on our path to emerge out of the pandemic, there's been a lot of changes just to the cost of living, everything from gas prices to the cost of food to the cost of services, uh, even to a lot of your paychecks and what you're getting paid. You're getting raises because employers understand that your cost of living has gone up and they have to keep your wages up with the cost of living. So if everybody's wages are going up and everybody's prices are going up, and it's probably going to sustain itself for a while. So Californians get used to paying $5 a gallon for gas. Maybe it's a little cheaper today, but wait till the summertime. Ooh, just wait till the summertime. I already know next time I go to California, I'm renting an electric vehicle because I don't want to give California $6 a gallon for gas. It's just ridiculous. At least it feels ridiculous. But for someone who just entered into the world of driving, for the new, the young adults, where that's all they know and that's the only choice they have to get to and from work, you're kind of already used to it. But if you are looking to make a change, make a move, make sure you consider the cost of living and how far your dollars will go. No matter if you're earning American dollars and living somewhere else or earning the dollars, domestic dollars, and wherever you are, think about how far that money's going to go. So come up with a plan for that. Definitely sounds like Gabriella and her family did. So hats off to you. So I have to ask because that's again, that's usually the part that a lot of people don't get right. So I'm curious to know how you and your husband became so financially literate at such a young age.
Oh goodness. I don't know if I'd say we were financially literate necessarily. I mean, we're definitely more now. Like
We'll
we
call it
a
how
lot.
about financially aware?
Aware. Sounds good. Yes,
Okay.
sounds good. I can obviously speak more to myself than my husband. But both of us grew up, in kind of moderate income families. It was just my mom and I growing up, single income. She did not have a degree. So she worked as a receptionist. So, I mean, you can imagine what that income probably looked like for us. And just knowing that money doesn't grow on trees, you have to work for it. Don't just spend on things just for the sake of spending on things. Think through what you're going to do first. Think through what you're going to buy. Think through what your priorities are. Was kind of like the mantra that she kind of taught to me. Splurging is for when you have extra, and you don't have extra until you've paid everything, that's due. Your light bill, your phone bill, your rent, all those things. So I think we both kind of came from that kind of background and mindset. And so when we did make the decision that we were going to move, we started, cutting back as much as we, even when we were still in the States, we kind of started cutting back on the extras. We started cutting back on, I brought my lunch to, all the things that, the typical things. I started bringing lunch to work. I stopped going to Starbucks and making my own coffee. We stopped going into Target and buying those extra little things that, you start to fill your shopping cart with. So we had some savings. And then, like I said, we budgeted out exactly what we thought we would be spending every single month in Mexico so that we made sure that we had at least a year's worth of like money kind of saved in the space for that. And then how much money we would need to make every month to supplement and sustain ourselves. So, I mean, I don't know that we had anything that would be like great advice, but definitely those were some of the
Oh,
things that we
stop. Do not discount yourself. Do you know how hard it is for the average American to make the decision to bring their lunch to work every day? It's too hard to tell the friend. I mean, now pandemic times, it may be a little bit different for those that aren't working at a workplace from 9 to 5, but it can be very difficult to tell your best friend at work, your work friend, that you're not going to go out to eat with them that day when that's what you've been doing every single Tuesday for the last 3, 4, 5 years that you've worked at that place, or being told it's your turn to go pick up the food and they give you the office's money and you go pick up the food and order something for yourself and that sort of thing. I mean, those habits are hard for a lot of people to break. So those are extraordinary things. And believe me, I look at people's budgets all the time and where they're spending their money. I mean, you brought up the coffee thing. I am drinking homemade coffee because I also had a coffee habit, which you can listen about on another episode because I've spoken to it multiple times. So, what was your first memory of money growing up with your mom in that one income receptionist household of Chicago?
The first memory, like I mentioned, briefly was, always kind of getting to the end of the month. And, that last week was always like that stretch week. There was always this like week of stretch where we go to the grocery store. We had a pretty regular schedule going every week to the grocery store and we'd shop kind of for the week. But that last week was usually always the basics. Like the first week of the month, sometimes I'd get a toy or I'd get a juice box. It was never anything, major, but there was always a little something fancy that we got extra. We buy, something out of the bakery, we buy a little piece of cake to share. But then by that last week, it was always just like the very bare basics: lunch meat for sandwiches, bread, some mayonnaise if we needed it, rice, pasta. We get beans because, bag of beans makes a lot of food, those types of things. I didn't really pick up on that so much until, obviously looking at it later, but it was always kind of like, why can't I have the little toy? Why can't I have this? Looking back on it, I think that was kind of indicative of, the financial situation we were in and the decisions that, had to be made, splurges that were, available when they were available. And also, I don't know if you had this, but like the book club would come to school where they
Oh yeah,
had the books
Scholastic
that you
Book
could
Club.
buy.
Yep, Scholastic Book
Yeah.
Club. It still
Yeah.
comes to
Scholastic.
school. It still does.
Yeah. And I remember they would come to the school and my mom would give me $5. It was like the most money because I never had money. She would give me $5 and I could go to the book fair. And I remember like, $5 at the time, there was tax. So it's like you couldn't get the $4.99 books. So you usually had to like pick and choose a couple of, 99-cent this, a pencil and an eraser. And all the other kids would come home with these bags. They got like bags for their stuff. I never got a bag. It was just went in my backpack because it was little things. And, just kind of feeling like there's more, there's more out there. but being grateful for what I had too, Yeah, that was a little all over the place. But I think those were like the first two major money realizations that I had as a kid, like just knowing that like there was not enough money. Like money does not grow on trees. There is not enough money. And you have to be mindful of what you have, or else you really won't have it.
You see, everyone, or you hear how prevalent that phrase, money doesn't grow on trees. And every time I hear it, I just want to scream, but this is a podcast. I don't want to hurt everyone's ears. For some people, money does grow on trees. It does. If you're a farmer and you have an orange farm, your money grows right on the tree. That is your money. That is what you exchange for money. So it is just as good as money. But we've used that phrase that money doesn't grow on trees to try to influence us to think that money can't be replenished, that it's not plentiful, that there is scarcity. And I think we need to make sure that we're not repeating that for our children and our children's children. Because like I said, money does grow on trees. You can create methods. Actually, Gabriella's done it. She has her own business. She has created a method where her money grows on a tree, but that tree is not the orange tree that's in or orange grove that's in the backyard. It's more a network of people that know her, trust the work that she does, and continue to refer her to new people. And she continues to do the work she does. And she has created a money machine of sorts that grows. Okay. It's not really the tree. We have to think about metaphors and what does that phrase really mean? And again, let's break that paradigm of thinking that money isn't plentiful. Okay. Because the orange tree can give oranges for years. Okay. The only things that, I mean, there are some fruits and vegetables I'm sure you can think of that don't replenish year after year after year, but think about the 100-year-old grapevines that make money for centuries for families. That money grows on a vine every year. Now they have to cultivate it, they have to fertilize it. The same thing can be true with whatever business you may be building. You're going to have to fertilize it, cultivate it, take care of it, water it, nurture it, sometimes even talk to it. So, but beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I want to double back to at the top of the show, we were mentioning the peer-to-peer payments and how it's going to be incredibly important to track that, especially if you're a US citizen making money with a US company in these United States of America and you file a US tax return, you're going to be affected. So I'm curious, is that something that you have to be concerned about as someone that is a resident of another country?
Yeah, so for us, I definitely use PayPal as a payment portal, so to speak. It's a business account. So I mean that's a really important thing is making sure if you're a business, having a business account and not just doing, cash apps and Venmos. That's something I learned, very early on when opening my business to actually have a legitimate, setup. Living abroad, our current situation where we are here in Antigua, we are not beholden to taxes here in Antigua. So I do not have to pay any taxes. My husband's job is tax free. His income is tax free. And so what he gets paid is what he gets paid. Like his contract
Nice.
says this, he gets
Okay, hold
paid
on.
that. There's no.
That's Antigua with a U. We don't pronounce the U, and that's in the Caribbean islands, correct? Okay. Tax-free. Let me know if they're looking for any financial literacy professors.
I will
I
definitely
might
let you
know
know.
a
Yes,
guy.
the university is based in the US. It is an American company. So he works here, but he works through the US. He's paid through the US
Hmm.
and it's tax-free income. But however, he still has to report all of his income. So we have an expat tax expert who helps us with that because there are kind of things that we have to consider that it goes. I think like the tax, like turbo tax and stuff. I think they do have like an expat branch
Package.
to
Hmm.
do, but we like people who know things versus computers. Sometimes it's just make sure we're above board. He has to report his taxes. I obviously have to, or his income. I have to report mine. So, like you were saying with the PayPal, like making sure I'm printing everything up, I'm getting paid elsewhere into my business account, having all of that paperwork and documentation. And then I still have to pay taxes and report my income in the same way that I would if I lived in the US. However, there is a small benefit to living abroad is you do get, if you are out of the country, and please don't quote me on the specific days because I could be wrong. But there's a certain number of days out of a 365-day period. If you're out for 300 and something days and can prove that, then it's considered like foreign earned income or something. And so there is a tax benefit. So I can make upwards, I believe is a couple upwards of like 120,000 US dollars, something in those lines.
You're pretty close. You actually did a good job. You were close enough.
Okay.
I can't quote the exact numbers either, but yes, if you were out of the United States, what I tell clients, if you're out of the United States for 9 months or more, talk to your tax professional about getting exclusions on your income that's earned. Yes, that is a thing. It absolutely is. So I'm glad you're taking it.
Yeah, so that's really been helpful for both of us since moving.
Beautiful. So again, listeners, if you have any of those peer-to-peer apps, did we name them all? Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. I feel like I'm forgetting one. Zelle. There we go. Zelle. That's another one. And there's probably a dozen more. I think there's Facebook Pay and there's Google Pay, Apple Pay.
There's going to be Instagram business. Apparently Instagram, you're going to start subscriptions on Instagram now. I don't know what's going on.
So, and by the way, you may have noticed if you have Venmo or PayPal, you probably received an email already that says we need to verify some of your information. And they're verifying your social security number, where you live, because they are obligated to report your transactions now that are over $600. Excuse me, cumulative transactions that exceed $600. And most of us don't have those apps for less than that are receiving less than that or paying less than that. Because again, you could buy a couch from someone and create a tax problem for them. And some of the apps do have those options. I know PayPal does specifically, where you can say this is a gift. So that it will at least track it on your side and their side that it was a gift and not a payment for a service. But again, ladies and gents, if you are running a business, as Gabriella said, and you don't have your business account set up and your LLC if required, or LLP or corporation, et cetera, this is a very good year to go ahead and get that stuff in order, because life is going to get a little bit more difficult on the tax side. So we just want to keep everyone out of, tax trouble. You don't want Wesley Snipes problems. I mean, he seems fine now, but I think that was a big problem for him. And if those don't know what I'm talking about, quick Google search, you'll figure it out. So again, Gabriella, thank you so much for spending some time with us on the Money Script podcast. For those that want to learn more about your services and how you help other women in their businesses, where can they find you?
I'm most active on Instagram, and my handle is, I guess, at Gabriella M. Lindsay. And then also online, my website is the same, GabriellaMLindsay.com. So you can find me there in both places very easily.
I guess, I spoke, and let me really quickly, because I spoke a little bit about what you do at the top of the show, but can you quickly share with other female professionals what you can do for them?
Well, you did an excellent job explaining it. But basically what I do is I'm a copywriter. So I create written content, the written content that you see on websites, that you see on social media captions, that you see in marketing emails that come to you, either advertising services or products. I also help my clients with launch strategy. So if you ever see coaches who are out there selling their group coaching program or one-on-one programs, I help create the launch strategy and then the written words that go along with the sales pages and emails that you receive when being enticed to join. So that's basically what I do in supporting my clients. And also I help other would-be copywriters get their businesses off the ground. It's a great way to make money from, anywhere in the world, basically, so long as you have internet and a laptop, you can make your own money.
You can, and you don't need a laptop. You can use an iPad, a tablet, phone, thumbs. If you have thumbs, actually, you don't even need thumbs. You use fingers or voice activated, dictate, whatever. So again, there are ways. So again, thank you so much for joining us for the podcast, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us on the Money Script podcast. Be sure to check out our other episodes, subscribe, follow, and give us 5 stars. Continue to send your financial questions on Twitter or Instagram at the Money Script. Go to moneyscriptwealth.com and schedule your complimentary consultation to discuss your specific goals and concerns. Financial advisory and investment management services are offered by Money Script Wealth Management PLLC, a registered investment advisory firm registered in the state of Texas and California and other states where exempt. The Money Script LLC and the Money Script Wealth Management PLLC and guests of the episode may have interest in the investments mentioned today. The opinions and views are expressed here are for informational purposes only. This material is educational in nature and should not be deemed as a solicitation for any specific product or service. All investments involve risk and a significant loss of principal. The Money Script nor Money Script Wealth Management offer tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney for specific advice about your situation. Until next time.